Hey guys, this is Austin, and today I'm here with my review of the iPhone 6 Plus. Put it side by side with the 5S and the difference in size is almost ridiculous. You're getting a much thinner phone with the 6, however you do lose the chamfered edges in favor of a seamless design between the glass and frame. While it's nice in the hand, I actually prefer the chamfers on the 5 and 5S. It gives you something to grip and it looked and felt premium. Instead of having the antenna built into the frame of the phone, instead there are now plastic antenna lines which actually look very similar to what you'll find on the HTC One M8. Now personally I don't think this is a terrible idea, however it definitely looks much better in my opinion on the space gray version as opposed to silver or gold. The sleep wake button has been moved over to the side of the phone, which is definitely a welcome change considering just how much bigger the 6 Plus is. And while yes, there is a protruding camera lens, it ended up not being as big a deal as I was afraid of. So yes, when you set it down on a table, it will wobble just a little bit if you touch the top. However, for the most part, it's really not a big issue, and the camera lens seems to be at least a little bit protected by that metal ring around it, so I wouldn't really worry too much about it getting scratched up. Now don't get me wrong, the 6 Plus is still a very nice slab of aluminum and glass, however it has lost a little bit of the specialness of the previous design. Just a little bit of a step backward in my opinion. In return though, you have a much larger screen measuring in at 5.5 inches, big enough to nearly fit the entire iPhone 5S in it. Because of this, there's no way of getting around it. The 6 Plus is a huge phone. Apple has included a new reachability mode, which brings the top of the screen down by double tapping the home button, and while I can see it might be useful for some people, it's definitely not the most elegant solution. Put it side by side with the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, and you'll see it's a bit taller while being both narrower and thinner. In real use, it feels about the same. It's pocketable and usable on a daily basis, but this is definitely not a phone you want to use with one hand. My friend Jenner from Your Average Consumer did a great video getting people's reactions to the 6 Plus, which you guys can check out in the description, but it does border on too big for a lot of people. In return though, you're getting one of the nicest screens on any phone period. The 1080p resolution is just right for a screen of this size in my opinion, and you're getting great viewing angles and excellent color reproduction. Compared with the iPhone 6, you're getting a bigger, higher resolution screen that while it's not an enormous difference, is definitely noticeable when you're doing things like browsing desktop sites. Just like when the Retina display first came out, while basically all apps will work on the 6 Plus, those that haven't been updated yet are just being upscaled, which definitely looks a little fuzzy compared to an app that's actually meant to be running on this 1080p screen. System apps like Safari are fully up and running with the new screen, and they do give you a split landscape view kind of like an iPad in a few places. However, most of the apps that I use every day could definitely use an update to support the new screen. Speaking of the iPad, there's actually a new landscape mode for the home screen, which while it's a nice option, it can be a bit weird to pull your phone out of your pocket and have the screen upside down or sideways. Inside both the 6 and 6 Plus, you're looking at an Apple A8, which sports a 1.4 GHz dual-core processor, 1 GB of RAM, and a quad-core PowerVR GPU. Now this might not sound like much compared to quad-core Android phones clocked twice as high, however don't let the specs fool you. In Geekbench, the 6 Plus beats the Note 3 significantly in single-threaded performance, which is key for day-to-day use, and even matches the multi-threaded score with only half as many cores. It's no slouch in the graphics department either, as it clears a solid lead over the new Moto X in the Manhattan GFX bench test. Put the 6 Plus and 6 side by side though, and it's essentially a tie, as both have identical internals. When benchmarking or gaming, after a while all phones will start to warm up. Now usually the phone will start to throttle back clock speeds, slowing things down to keep the phone from being scalding hot and burning your fingers. The Apple A8 is supposedly able to avoid throttling, so I decided to put it to the test with the 6 and 6 Plus alongside the 5S and the One M8. The iPhone 5S measured in at just under 37 degrees Celsius after 10 minutes. Very warm to the touch, but not uncomfortably so. The One M8 topped out just a bit higher, still not unusable, but definitely on the warmer side. The iPhone 6 was a slight improvement, however the 6 Plus was basically cool to the touch except for a single warm spot on the side. It's not a big deal, but it's nice to see the 6 Plus can stay nice and cool without having to give up any performance. Good job, Apple! In normal use, the 6 Plus is incredibly snappy. While it's clear that iOS 8 still has some bugs to be worked out, the UI almost always stays smooth and responsive. It's not noticeably faster than the already solid iPhone 5S in real-world use, but it easily matches up to phones like the HTC One M8. One very disappointing part of the 6 Plus, however, is the memory. With a powerful 64-bit processor, Apple bizarrely chose to go with just 1 GB of RAM for the 5S, and they've kept it the same this year on both the 6 and 6 Plus. Now if you're just browsing Twitter or watching a few YouTube videos, this isn't a big deal. However, all it takes is a couple taps in Safari or a few apps open in multitasking, and you'll find yourself constantly having to refresh things. Now this is just silly. I mean, even the Galaxy S3 back in 2012 had 2 gigs of RAM. So why one of the most powerful phones here in 2014 only has 1 gig is just completely and totally beyond me. Like, seriously, this is just not cool. Now, something that is cool is being able to unlock your phone with your fingerprint, and while Touch ID was a great feature on the 5S, it's been improved here. It's a bit faster and most importantly accurate. Where I would have to retry my print at least a couple times a week with the 5S, the 6 Plus has only missed my print once in the hundreds of times I've unlocked my phone in the last couple weeks. While it's not out yet, you'll also be able to use Touch ID with Apple Pay soon, which looks seriously impressive. Another big upgrade on the iPhone 6 Plus is the camera. While it still delivers 8 megapixels like the last 3 generations, the megapixel count definitely isn't the entire story. Side by side with the already excellent iPhone 5S, there's less noise even in brightly lit shots, which allows the 6 to hold on to more detail, especially in extremely contrasty situations. Dynamic range is slightly improved, and Apple's implementation of HDR still strikes a good balance between getting more out of the shadows and highlights without going completely overboard like on some other phones. Wanna mate. Get a nice macro shot and you can pull off some decent depth of field, one of my favorite ways to get nice looking images out of a smartphone. There's also a 10 frame per second burst mode like on the 5S, which you can get to by holding down the shutter button for essentially as long as you want. In practice, it can be helpful to make sure that you catch the exact moment when the action happens. The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus have identical cameras with one exception. The 6 Plus gets optical image stabilization. Other phones like the HTC One M7 have used this to great effect, and so does the 6 Plus. By stabilizing the lens, you can get longer exposures in low light without making things too blurry or grainy. It does a very solid job here, allowing exposures as long as a quarter of a second while still not losing detail even when shooting handheld. In extremely low light, even the stabilization can't solve everything, but the camera does do a good job of holding on to detail even when pushed to ISO 2000. Easily one of the biggest make or break features for me on a phone is the camera. One of my favorite things is to go out and spend an afternoon Instagramming. Now this is actually a big reason why I used the 5S for as long as I did, just because that camera was so awesome, and the 6 Plus takes it up a notch. And on top of that, the video's not too bad either. As you guys can see, the video is also impressive. It's hard to tell how much the optical stabilization helps here, as the preview window usually doesn't look too impressive, but when you play the clip back, there's definitely some very serious software stabilization going on. It's hard to argue with for most video though. Even walking gets almost entirely smoothed out, which is seriously impressive for a smartphone. There's also now continuous autofocus in video. It's a big step forward compared to before where you just didn't have any autofocus in video, and while it does do a good job of tracking subjects, it isn't quite as smooth at transitioning as I'd like. Noise also sometimes creeps into the video, especially in extreme situations. Easily one of my favorite features is the new slow motion. The 6 and 6 Plus now shoot at either 120 or 240 frames per second and really allow you to capture some awesome stuff. Take something like stomping the ground. Boring at normal speed, right? Slow it down though. While the 6 Plus won't be replacing my video gear anytime soon, it actually is the best slow motion camera that I own, and it's more than good enough for grabbing a quick shot when I'm on the go. One new feature on the 6 and 6 Plus are new speakers. Interestingly, it seems to be slightly different between devices. The 6 gets louder but lacks bass, where the 6 Plus doesn't quite match the loudness, but it does sound a bit more balanced. The 6 Plus is a step up from the last gen, but it's still no match for the excellent front-facing speakers on the HTC One M8. One of my favorite features of the 6 Plus is the battery life. Now, previous iPhones did pretty decent considering just how small the batteries were. However, with the 6 Plus, we're looking at a 2900 mAh battery, giving it some pretty impressive longevity. For me, this is absolutely a killer feature. No matter how hard I use the phone, I could never kill it in a single day. This alone is enough to make me go with the 6 Plus over the 6. Not having to stress about finding a charger at the end of a long day is such a big deal. Of course, one major issue with the 6 Plus is bend gate. If somehow you missed it, my friend Lou from Unbox Therapy was able to completely bend the iPhone 6 Plus by applying pressure behind the volume buttons. Several other people have found slight bends in normal daily use, including Matt Honan from Wired in his review, and while Apple is replacing these phones, it's a bit worrying that your expensive new phone is so fragile. I recently tested the 6 Plus with a case over on TLD's channel, and while it wasn't able to completely protect the phone, it should be more than good enough for daily use. The Apple leather and silicone cases probably won't add too much rigidity, although the silicone is surprisingly nice, but investing in a Spigen or OtterBox case probably isn't a bad idea. While bend gate absolutely is a real issue, it's also not severe enough for me to not want to recommend the iPhone 6 Plus. Sure, it won't be the most durable phone in the world, but especially if you put a case on it, it should be just fine. If all things were equal, I think the 4.7-inch iPhone 6 is a much more manageable phone for everyday use, but there's more to it than that. The 6 Plus can absolutely replace a small tablet, and the excellent battery life makes it the easy choice if you need a phone to last you all day and then some. So what do you guys think? Is the iPhone 6 Plus for you? Definitely be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also, if you guys enjoyed this review, definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more videos like this. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.